Hi, I'm Selina from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Nelson DeMille, who is an action, adventure, and suspense author. And actually, Nelson, for people who are not familiar with your work, could you please describe really what you write? And I know you write in all kinds of different things. So,
Yeah, I switched genres. My first novel was in 1978, was by the Rivers of Babylon, which was, a kind of an international terrorist thriller book. And then my second was something called Talbot Odyssey, which was more of a, espionage and suspense. And then the Gold Coast, which is, I think, maybe my biggest book, was more in the vein of sort of like a Bonfire of the Vanities of Tom Wolfe. It was more literary. So I've been all over the board. I've done, during the Cold War, I did my Cold War thrillers and all my Cold War espionage, and I've done the anti-terrorist thrillers. But I've also done other kinds of novels that are considered more, yeah, even whodunits. The General's Daughter, that was made into a movie,
yes.
John Travolta and Madeline Stowe. That was more of a, just a straight police procedural. So, I do switch genres, which is good and bad. It confuses my readers, but I enjoy it.
Well, that's good. It's good to get into different genres, I think.
Yeah,
You know, you,
yeah,
you don't get bored, right?
yeah, exactly. And hopefully the reader doesn't get bored either.
Right, exactly. So, what can readers expect from your latest book?
Oh, The Maze.
Yeah.
The Maze is number 8 in the John Corey series. The first John Corey book was Plum Island, written about 25 years ago. And that's kind of a police procedural in some ways. John Corey is a former NYPD homicide detective, wounded in the line of duty, and he's retired with a medical disability, though he's not really disabled. So the maze is sort of circles back to Plum Island, which was 25 years ago. The setting is the North Shore of Long Island, or the North Fork, I should say. Um, and how would I describe it? It's kind of, I would say, police procedural more than anything
Mhm.
else. A little bit of everything in it, but it's a mystery within a mystery. And I did something I don't normally do. I based it on a true crime, which was the Gilgo Beach murders here on Long Island. There were nine, no, actually, there were 10 sex workers who were found at various times along the bramble on the beach, kind of hidden off the white sand. They were kind of hidden, so that they nobody knew they were there. Nobody knew how long they were there. Some of them were there for 2 years, according to the autopsies. But it was shocking that there were 10 young women murdered. Nobody knew about it. They disappeared, but being sex workers, they didn't have a lot of connections, and nobody knew, who. Nobody put it together until the bodies started showing up. And the Gilgo Beach murders, was not just locally notorious. There's been a documentary made about it. It made national news in many ways. And this is now a crime that's 11 years old, 10 victims, and no suspects. So I was said, like, well, let me, I'm kind of local, so I was intimately involved, not involved. I had knowledge of the case through police who I know who are my sources. So I fictionalized the Gilgo Beach murders, and that's basically what The Maze is about.
So that was your inspiration for the whole
Yeah,
series.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, for this book, yeah, yeah.
So, what kind of research did you have to do for this?
Well, the research was just me reading the papers every day for the last 11 years. This thing has been almost weekly in the news, it's been on TV. But then I did have a lot of sources with the county police in Suffolk County out on end of Long Island, where the Hamptons are, Fire Island, that part of Long Island. And it's good to be a best-selling author because the police will talk to you. You have sources, and especially retired police, they're more than happy to talk to. They're off the job at that point. So, aside from all that's been written about it, I was able to actually interview a lot of police who were involved with the case. And, it was interesting because there's been so much speculation that it was ever these, like, this is nobody knows who the murderer is, but they actually now have a suspect. The last day or two, I just heard that there's a
Wow.
suspect after 11 years. But there have been a lot of suspects, and this is the problem with unsolved, shocking crimes that a lot of people become suspects. It ruins a lot of lives, a lot of names that were bandied about. Um, without, people thought it was a mafia. People thought it was some rich guy, some Jack the Ripper rich guy in the Hamptons who was, killing these prostitutes. It was kind of juicy stuff for the tabloids because it was so close to the Hamptons and Fire Island, and also the fact that 10 young women could just disappear and nobody knew about it until the first body was found, and the second, third, fourth, and then every week or so there'd be another body found, and everybody was shocked. Um, so it has all the, I guess you say, the elements of a of fiction, but it was real life. But like most crimes, the truth is stranger than fiction sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Wow. So what was your biggest challenge that you had in writing it?
That's a good question. One is not to exploit the tragedy. You never want to exploit the tragedy when you're fictionalizing whatever it is. I did this once. I did a fictionalization once before of the TWA 800 crash that blew up off the coast of Long Island, and it was a tragedy. And you don't want to fictionalize. I mean, you want to fictionalize it, but you don't want to, exploit it. You want to, hopefully bring some light to it, and that's what I hope that this book would do. Um, Also, taking the facts was a challenge, and putting them into fiction. Uh, you want it to be close enough to the fact, but not so close that it becomes, and it can become a little boring. 10 years of investigation, there are reams and reams of things written about this case. You have to kind of distill it, and you have to be cognizant that that names that you put in the book that you're fictionalizing and that are supposed to be real people,
Right.
you're not getting yourself into a lawsuit or something. This book was vetted by the publisher's lawyer, and had to be, because when you get that close to fiction or fact, you need to have it vetted because everybody is litigious today.
Right. And you can't make the suspect too close to the real
Right,
person, or
exactly.
whatever. Yeah. One thing that I didn't ask you also was when I asked you about research, what is your favorite research story that you've ever had?
Excuse me. There have been a number of them. Research used to be very difficult before you could go online and find
Mhm.
this stuff. There's three kinds of research. There's, the field research, which is going to the place.
Yeah.
I have a book set in Moscow. I have a book as scenes in Belfast during the bombings back in the 1980s. Some of these places, that I've gone to, are a little bit dangerous. I have a book set in Vietnam. I was in Vietnam as a soldier back in the 60s, but I went back in 1997. So that's the field research. Some of it could be, interesting and probably never luxurious. Vietnam and Belfast and Moscow, not that luxurious. But then the other research was what I call the book research, which is really online now. And the third thing is interviewing the people. And oh gosh, there's so many research stories. Okay, I can tell you one. I was in Vietnam. I was at Saigon at a hotel called the Continental, and I knew I was going to set a scene there. And I was with a bunch of people. There was a rooftop bar, and we were going. I had to take pictures. It was a very important scene I was going to set there, and but we started drinking. It got dark, and we kind of forgot why we were up there, and then we moved on from Saigon to someplace else, and I realized I'd just blown this whole thing, this whole, very elaborately set up, going to Vietnam to, and I said, "Oh my God, I'll never get back." This is. But then somebody said, and this is back in '97, I guess it was. Somebody said, "Go online," which was unusual in those days. See if the hotel has a website. And I said, a website, okay. And one of the things I remembered from that scene, when we were drinking probably too much, was pink elephant. And I said, that must be part of the having too much alcohol. But anyway, I went online, and sure enough, the hotel had a website, which is unusual in those days, especially for a foreign hotel. And there were pictures of the rooftop bar, and there really was a pink elephant there that was part of
Oh,
the decor, a pink elephant with a crown on its head. And I mean, and it just opened up a whole new world to me of how to do research. I mean, it's fun to do it, in the field, as we say, on site, but also, you can back it up, with internet stuff. So which is what a lot of writers do now. And a lot of writers, it brings up another, a lot of writers are armchair adventurers. They don't go anywhere. I'm of the generation where we went to where we were writing about, and I've been to some, places that were, a little bit dangerous. I went back to Vietnam, and there were minefields and stuff. You had to stay on the path, don't wander off the path because the minefields are still there, that type of thing. Not to mention disease um, and Moscow. I was there in '87, I believe it was, when Nick Daniloff, a U.S. News and World Report correspondent, had been arrested. It's at the height of the Cold War, and there was a lot of tension. And I really didn't want to be there. And it was a very, very suppressed country, very, very, kind of place where you can be picked up on the street by the old KGB. But it was also fun. There's an element of adventure there. But now writers that I know, younger writers, are using the internet a little too much and not going out to get the whoop and woof of a place and the smells and the taste and the touch of it. It's a good backup, but it can't ever replace real, going to where you're writing about. Now they say no, write about what you know, but a lot of people, all they know is what's on the internet. They've created a whole artificial world, virtual world that they live in. A lot of younger writers, and they've not been to these places, but they do able to report it accurately because the internet is an incredible tool. But it's only a tool. It doesn't really take the place of getting on a plane and going somewhere. So.
You've told me a lot about your unfavorite adventures. What about some of your favorite adventure?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Most of the places I've been to for research have not turned out well. But well, Moscow, I did meet a young lady named Svetlana who was a guide, and a year later she managed to get to the States, still during the time of the Cold War, and we dated for a while. So that was kind of interesting. You do meet, women on the road. I mean, this is part of it. And, um, there's been some serendipitous things that have happened. One time I was actually in the Tower of London because I had a scene that was going to be set there, and I was in one of the courtyards or something, and a whole bunch of American tourists recognized me. Well, I don't think they all did, but one did. And all of a sudden, I'm surrounded by these, about 15 American tourists who were in a group. And then not only did I have my picture taken, but a lot of them wanted to call home. So anyway, these American tourists, a lot of them, two of them wanted me to talk to some friends of theirs back in the States. So they made phone calls on their cell phones. And so, I felt like all of a sudden I'm a celebrity in the middle of the Tower of London there and talking to American tourists. So, that people have, offered to buy me dinner, buy me drinks, and bars and restaurants overseas. When I'm traveling, it's not often that an author gets recognized, but it happens. It happens almost every time I go someplace. They don't recognize the face; they recognize the name. If somehow my name is involved in some transaction, so that's always good. It's nice to be recognized for your work, and nice to be
Mm-hmm.
acknowledged. But not as much as, let's say, a movie star, which could be annoying.
I would imagine. Yeah, it's kind of nice though if a lot of people, don't jump on you like a movie star,
Right,
but
right, exactly. It's sort of, but usually people who are readers are nicer, are
yeah.
nicer than that.
So, what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Well, I'm trying to think of my next book. I have several ideas. One of the ironies of being a bestseller is that everyone has to be better than the next, and there's a lot of pressure. If you're a good solid mid-list author, you can kind of explore different things. But when you're a best-selling author, the publisher and the agent, are very intimately involved with what you're going to do next. They want to make sure it's commercial. And then you kind of search the world around you, saying, what's happening now? Well, terrorism is not so much happening. We don't really care about it anyway. The Cold War, God knows, is 30 years over, but maybe it's coming back, the Ukraine. But when you're writing a book, as you know, it could take you a year and a half to write. Then it takes the
Right.
publisher 6 months, 7 months, 8 months to get it out. By the time the hardcover comes out, 2 years could have gone by from the time you decided to write about a subject, and maybe it's no longer relevant. This is if you try to do something contemporary. There are timeless books, and I'm thinking now I'm trying to create a new character. The uh, my series characters are good, but I think the publisher would like to see something new from me. So, but the answer is what to expect. I'm still I'm still struggling with the answer to that one. If anybody has and I ask my readers, through my website, my email, what would you like to see next? And most people would like to see a John Corey, which is what I've just written. That is overwhelming, but I know I'm not going to do that, so I have to come up with something else.
Yes. As you said before, you want to keep interested.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I have to be interested too. I mean, reader is usually interested in what I'm interested in. My readers are good. I mean, my readers follow me, which is great, and I've been doing this for, hard to say, 44 years now.
Wow.
And readers that started with me, some of them says I read your first book when it came out in 1978. So that's good that I've held on to, some readership. But, new readership is important, obviously.
Mhm.
44 years is a long time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. So, I have some questions now about being a writer. What is your favorite part of being a writer? Now, the
Of
whole.
writing those two magic words at the end. You know, you know,
Yeah, I would think so.
uh, there's an expression in the business. I hate writing, but I love having written, and I think a lot of writers feel that way. You love it when you've finished a chapter or finished a book, and you should be proud of it. Favorite part, certainly not the publicity tour, and it's not nothing to do with any of that. Um, I think just to be able to, I mean, to be totally honest, to be self-employed, to be able to make your own day and not
Mhm.
have to answer to anybody except the publisher, and that's only at deadline time. You don't normally hear from people. It's a solitary occupation. I kind of like that because I socialize at night, but during the day, I want to be left alone. I would not want to work with coworkers. I would not want to have to be someplace at 9 o'clock. Um, so, if I feel like working until midnight, and I have many times, I'm kind of a night writer, I can work till midnight. If I don't feel like getting in the office till 10 or 11 o'clock, that's when I do it. So, but there's pitfalls there too. I mean, you got to be careful that you are where you're supposed to be, where you need to be, to write. But I like the freedom of it. It gives you a lot of freedom. You don't have to think about when you're going to plan a vacation. The only thing that comes up in your life is your publication date.
Mhm.
And that time on, you're going to do publicity. So that's on the calendar. You know that. Other than that, you know, my day is my own, and I think that's the nicest part. It helps the creative flow too, knowing that if you don't feel that well in the morning, you can write in the afternoon. And I've written till dawn because I felt like writing until dawn. But if you worked in an office, I don't think they'd want you there overnight working till dawn. So that freedom, kind of is, and I think most writers would say that it's the freedom, but also the pitfalls of being able to do what you want when you want. You got to be careful that playing golf every day is not part of your
Mhm.
week. So you got to be responsible.
Right. So, are you a an outline writer or a pantser?
I do a brief outline, but the publisher would like to see an outline, or to approve an outline and to talk about the book. My outlines usually run 10 to 15 pages. A really big outline would be 30, 40 pages, and
Mhm.
that's really outlining, but I can't outline. We don't know where the book is going. The book is gonna, after chapter one, book can go any place. Chapter one could be, you put something in there that's oh, this is a better idea. So, I mean, I don't know how anybody can map out an entire book, 150,000 words in their mind. I just kind of do a general outline that the publisher would like to see, and it's kind of a very, big skeleton for me to work on. But even at that, sometimes I'll just change the direction of the book because it's not working. And I know what I'm doing when I sit down. And also I'm a bad outline writer. Some people are good outline writers. Some novelists, their outlines are better than their books, I hate to say, but they write great outlines but can't deliver. So it's sort of like the pitch, you don't want to pitch, you know what you're going to do.
Mhm.
Publishers don't trust you. After 23 books, they trust me. And all they're looking for is basically a memo.
Yeah. So do you usually know how the story is going to end, or does it kind of
And sometimes, yeah, sometimes I
go
do.
along?
The maze, and I won't give there would be a spoiler for me to say how it ends, but yes, I did know, how and where it was going to end. Um, some of them I don't. General's Daughter was a good example. It was a whodunit, a murder mystery, and even I had no idea who the murderer was. It was just a great story, and I realized that coming toward the end that we had several suspects, which is he supposed to do, and I wasn't sure who was actually the murderer. I had to go back to the beginning and kind of reread it. And finally, figured it out and planted a few clues. But I think a lot of people who write the whodunits, the murder mysteries, often
Mhm.
they don't know themselves because they are creating different suspects. With some genres, you really do need to know the end. Um, some books that are more, I won't say literary, but maybe more like Gold Coast. One of my books was also had a lot of romance and relationships in it, and at the end, you don't know if the man and the woman are going to be together. And I didn't know until the last 5 pages if I should keep them together or they should part. And I made that decision, and 50% of the people didn't like it. The other 50% said this is the way it should be. So, you need a feeling for the book before you come to that denouement. Denouement is difficult enough, but it's got to be based on everything that came before. And you don't know what came before until you write it. So, sometimes my endings change. But
Mhm.
everybody's is obsessed with the endings of a book. They're supposed to be along for the ride. That's part of the thrill. And at the end, it's like the movies, it's like TV. It's like, oh, why did it end like that? Everybody's got a better ending for you, But it ends the way you think it should end. And the novelist has made the decision, and that's it. If you don't like the ending, make up your own ending.
Yeah. Yes. So what do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process, and how do you overcome that?
The most challenging part, I guess everybody would say the same thing, is sitting down and starting the writing. Uh,
Hmm.
with a blank piece of paper in front of you, so to speak. Once you overcome that, I think once you get into it, it should start to flow. But it's like everything is like in the world of physics with inertia. If something is stopped, somebody's got to get it moving.
Hmm.
Um, you got to self-motivate. Not only just sitting there, but I mean, getting to the point where you're sitting at the desk because there are other things you could be doing, like doing your taxes or your checkbook or something, and it all seems very important because you're trying to avoid having to sit down at the desk to start writing. And but after you overcome that, I think it should go well. Writer's block, I don't really get writer's block, and if it happens where I think I don't know what I'm supposed to be writing next, I don't get up. I sit there and I reread. Writer's block, if there's such a thing, can be overcome by reading your own stuff that you've written before, prior to this, that part of the book that you haven't written or have written, and it should carry through. A lot of people get stuck because they think they've got writer's block, but what they really have is bad memory of what they don't remember what they wrote before. There was a natural sequence. Once you got 5 or 6 chapters, you should know where it's going.
Hmm.
Um, So, there's all these kind of internal things. When you're working by yourself, it's not like you're going to ask a colleague, for advice. It's all up to you, all of it, every bit of it. And I never make a phone call to my agent or my editor, saying, what do I do now? No, it's all me. That's my job.
Mhm. Okay. So what is the greatest lesson that you've learned thus far in your writing career?
The greatest lesson,
Mhm.
I mean, life lesson or writing lesson.
Writing lesson. I mean, what's the greatest
Yeah,
lesson you've learned in your writing career?
a writing career. Well, persistence is important. Young writers want to know how to get published, and there's no sure way of doing that. But I was persistent. Um, the lesson is, to be not only persistent, but to be independent, and that everything that you do has to do with you. I mean, not a lot of support network out there.
Mhm.
If you're, if you're like, if you're kind of person who's very collegial or needs colleagues around you, you're in the wrong business. It teaches you how to be independent within the career, but it also carries over to regular life. Um, to make decisions and to, as a parent and as a spouse. A lot of people think, writers are introverted. They're not really introverted. They've got to live with themselves all day long, and you got to learn how to make that transition too, from a writer to whatever your other roles in life are, whether it be parent or friend or whatever. Um, and then and I don't say never rely on anybody, because you rely on people. So I can put it in one word to answer the question. It's the self-reliance is what I was getting at. Self-reliance is a good thing, and that's what you learn as an author.
Okay. So what is that the piece of advice you would give to other authors, or do you have anything else?
Well, new authors, often go to writing workshops and they show this stuff to everybody, and everybody reads everybody else's. I don't know if that works. Maybe it works. I never went to a writer's work. I never took a writing course in my life. Um,
Wow.
but a lot of new writers are trying to make this into some kind of a collegial occupation, because there are too many writers' workshops and too many writing classes. No, that's not what it's about. It's about you alone in a room with your own imagination. And that's how you write a novel. You don't write it with a bunch of other people. So I say, put your writers' workshops and your writing classes and everything else into some kind of perspective. That's not the real world. And I think I would tell any writer, the advice I give every writer is to read, 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 and read things from different periods of history and different periods of time. Read Beowulf, read, Shakespeare,
Mhm.
and kind of bring yourself up. You see how the language developed. Um, Read British novels. They're very good writers. The Brits tend to, in some ways they write better than we do. They use the language better. Um, read contemporary novels, read the stuff that's out now. If you do a lot of reading, it'll really stimulate the brain and stimulate the imagination. And eventually, you as a writer should come up with a synthesis of who, but they say use your own voice, but you're not quite sure, what your voice is. But if you're a great reader, and I was a reader, because my generation, we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have, we had television, but we had like three channels. So, my father controlled the television. So, I did a lot of reading as a child, and I think we all did in my generation, and I've continued reading, and I think that's helped me, in my writing career. So my advice to writers is read, 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 and read
Mhm.
everything. Read things that even don't make things that are difficult, like the Canterbury Tales. We all had to slog through that in school. But there's something there. There's some language there. There's some thought there. Shakespeare's got some great plots, and you can see these things how the human condition has developed over the years. And when you sit down, it's not just the language; it's also situations that you maybe remember. You might remember, A Midsummer's Night Tale, and they'll say, "Oh, there's something good in there." There's nothing new under the sun. This has all been done before for
Hmm.
thousands of years by other people, just been done differently. So, if you're well read, you may become a good writer.
Good point. So I have some questions about you as a person.
Mm.
What is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
That I don't realize about me. I think I'm pretty open, but I think maybe one thing would be that I do tend to I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for. I'm so much in the public, but I really sometimes prefer my own company. Uh,
Mhm.
I like to be alone, and I don't really, I don't have I work alone all day, so but I don't mind being alone. But people think, people call me all the time, and they want to go out and have dinner, have a drink. Sometimes I just want to stay home, and I guess to answer the question most succinctly, I'm more of a private person. I like to be a private person. But
Mhm.
when you're personally author, you can't be a private person. So people think, okay, to answer the question even a better way, people think you like to be, a celebrity if best-selling authors are. But I would rather be a private person. But you don't see that because, when you're out in public and you doing your public thing. And I think a lot of actors and famous writers probably say the same thing. The
Mhm.
public part of my life is something I've got to do, but I'm really a private person.
Mhm. Yeah, I understand that. I can see that. I can see where actors definitely would do that. And
Yeah,
I can see where people who are in the public light
right,
want to be private.
right.
Now, I have some more questions about you as a person. Um, what is or are your passions when you're not writing? And how do you make time to do the things that you love?
Good question. My passion is travel. It's always been travel, and to try to have other hobbies or other distractions during the day is sometimes difficult. I used to play tennis, but then you got to schedule it, then something else comes up. The thing about travel is once it's scheduled, once you put all that money down on a on a trip, and it's on the calendar. A lot of things I try to do during the day that maybe are recreational do get canceled, do get postponed, but travel never does. The nice thing about travel is it's sacrosanct. And my assistant knows it's on the calendar. My friends sometimes know, and if I got 2 weeks in Europe, that's what I look forward to. I love travel. I love to, see the rest of the world, and I've been through most of the world by now. I've been to some strange places, but there's some on my bucket list that I still have to visit, and that's what I look forward to. And again, it's on the calendar in advance, so you know. And he said, "Oh, this is January, so I know I'm going to spend a week in the Caribbean,
Mhm.
which is nice. And then it's the spring. I know I'm going to spend some time in Italy, which is beautiful in the spring. Yeah, once you know the world, you know where to be. So, and then Asia again. Asia is a long trip, but once I'm there, it's just an immense. I totally get immersed in it because it's such a different culture than ours and European. So that's my passion is travel and I guess food too. That's part of the travel. Restaurants and gourmet, not gourmet dining so much, but the local foods, and that's what makes all the long hours worthwhile. The trip to Paris, London, or Rome, or to Hong Kong, or wherever I'm going.
Mhm. Great. So, what does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have around you when you're writing?
Oh, good question. Well, I have two offices. I have one where my assistant is, and then right above it on another floor of the building that I'm in. No, I don't write at home. There's a small room that I call Area 51 that nobody knows about. And that's my writing room, and it has no number on the door. It's an office building, a small old office building, kind of almost a historic building. But nobody knows. No people. I'm not in the directory downstairs, and I don't really. I don't type, so I write all my books longhand. So what I have there is a desk, an electric pencil sharpener, and a lot of yellow legal pads, and a coffee pot, and that's my writing space. And I do have a shelf full of reference books. So other than that, that's it. It's just my desk, my pencil sharpener, my pencils, my yellow pads, some reference books, and a coffee pot. And it's very spare, very sparse. I don't even have a computer in there. If I need something, I can. I don't have a phone either. I have my cell phone for emergencies, but it's a very quiet space. And when I'm there, there's only one thing to do, and that's to work. So you can't get confused about why you're sitting at the desk and there's nothing in front of you except a pencil sharpener, a pencil, and a yellow pad. So there you are.
So you don't write on a computer, you write on a notebook.
I read longhand, yeah. I read all along.
Yes. That's great. Yeah.
I give it to my assistant and she types it. So I do see it
Wow.
typed. Or I send it to the publisher. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. Um, I think you might be frozen. Are
Oh,
you? Yeah,
no.
you are frozen.
Oh,
Oh, there you go. Okay. I'll have to cut that part out too. Okay. Um, Next question is do you mentioned you have a coffee pot there. So you like to drink coffee
yeah.
and do you have any snacks or something that you like?
Snacks. Oh gosh. Not usually. Well, yeah, nuts. Right. I always have a can of nuts in the office. I nibble on nuts during the day. They're healthy. And when else would you eat nuts except if you're sitting at your desk? And yeah,
Okay.
that's the only snack I really indulge in is mixed nuts. And they turn out to be expensive. I didn't realize. I never usually pay for them. My assistant usually buys them, and I looked at the price once, and it's an expensive treat, but it is healthy, so I'm okay with that.
Okay. Now, when you're writing, do you prefer silence or music?
Total silence.
Total
That's
silence.
total silence. I mean, I know people who write in internet cafes, and they can write in their own house with the noise of vacuum cleaners going. I can't do that. I mean, I need a.
Yeah.
That's why it's Area 51. It's on the third floor. I don't hear in the suburbs. I don't hear much street noise, and the windows are closed, obviously, and I need that kind of um, space with no other stimulation. There's nothing in there but me and my brain. Hopefully, if I bring my brain with me that day.
Hmm. And
Distractions are really bad for most writers, but other writers think that they need to. I don't know. I know people, I can name them, but it's not writers who you would know who work at internet cafes. I said, well, God bless you.
I know I would think it would be really hard to write
Yeah,
with people walking by and looking at you.
right, exactly. Yeah.
I can't imagine. So I just have two more questions for you. Um, where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And I have to give a plug for Annie's in every video.
Right.
You can get Nelson's books at Annie's if you call 508-796-5613. And if we don't have it, we can get it. We could probably get it, hopefully. And or you can email us at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com. And where else can people find your books?
Well, all over, I am a best-selling author, so hopefully every bookstore, and also, on the online retailers, Amazon and bnn.com. My books are also on audio, um, read by Scott Brodie, who's a very good narrator, and they're also ebooks. And my entire backlist is still in print, which is great, from 1978 by the Rivers of Babylon. So I have 22 novels, all still in print and all most available as audiobooks, all available as ebooks, and all available as in a trade paperback format or a mass market format. So, I've been fortunate that all my books have stayed in print through my career. So you guys could have a whole shelf devoted to Nelson DeMille.
Great. And one of your is it only one of your books, The General's Daughter, that was made into a movie?
Yeah, well, I made it into a feature film. The other one, the two of them are made into TV movies. One was Mayday
Right.
that I co-authored with Tom Block, my childhood friend, a U.S. air pilot, and that was oh gosh, Aiden Quinn starred in the CBS TV movie of Mayday, which is available online if you know where to go. And the other one was Word of Honor, which was starring Don Johnson and Gene Triplehorn, actually. So those were two TV movies, and they were good. There was nothing wrong with them. But General's Daughter was a major feature film for Travolta, and that's still available too. And I know tens of millions of people. It was a huge box office success, which, helped the book and helped my career because people who didn't know me went back and bought The General's Daughter in paperback and liked that and then bought other books. So, it was a big turning point in my career. I was already a bestseller, but this made me a kind of a bigger bestseller, the film. But we're working on several film deals. We're always working on film deals. Hollywood is, moves slowly sometimes, and then they don't know what they want half the time, and sometimes they surprise you when they buy the movie rights to a book that you can't even see as a movie, and vice versa. So I don't try to second guess those people. I leave that to my agent.
Okay. And my last question to you is, how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Oh, well, thank you. NelsonDeMille.net. That's my website, which has been under development for a long time. And through the website, you can also email me. There's a mailbox, which is great, and I love to get email. I get thousands of emails every year. I can't answer all of them, obviously, but I read all my email from my readers. So it's NelsonDeMille.net, and we usually announce at some point what my next book is going to be. So I have to think about that now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me,
My pleasure. Thank you.
Nelson DeMille. And hopefully we'll see you at our bookstore
That'd be
sometime.
nice. Next time I'm in Massachusetts with my relatives, I am definitely going to stop there. I'll let you know ahead of time. Okay.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Nelson
Thank
DeMille,
you.
and we will be seeing you.
Thank you. Bye bye.